Welcome back to Bleach Revisited, the series in which I, Karakura Gold, bring you through an unscripted rereading of every single Bleach chapter one by one until we finish the entirety of the series. The goal is to revisit these chapters to really celebrate what's working in the chapters, maybe discuss the things that aren't working as much, but ultimately to give, response and analysis to each of the chapters, as well as talk about how it's connected to Bleach as a whole in retrospect. It's a lot of fun getting to see how these certain narrative structures arise, all these things and elements that were present early on in Bleach that end up becoming more significant later, and a lot of the kind of visuals that Kubo starts to develop and the motifs that he'll run with throughout the entirety of the series. So if you're a new fan of Bleach, or if you've read the entire thing, if you're familiar with it, if you've only seen the anime, no matter where you're at, this is the place for you. This is content made exclusively. Well, I say exclusively with the Bleach fan in mind, right? Regardless of how fervently you follow. But without further ado, let us get into this upcoming chapter. This is chapter 27 of Bleach. I hate this astrology crap. Fortune telling, feng shui, physics, psychics. Anything that makes money by exploiting the hopes of the gullible. So even though it says Cancer will have an abysmal luck this week, I'm not worried at all. Cancer. There's no easy way to say it. This week will be catastrophic. Bad things will rain down on you. You may even lose your will to live. Your lucky number is 666. Your lucky colors are red on black. Because I don't believe in this crap. Even though this week I tripped on nothing 3 times, and my shoestring snapped twice, and I lost my wallet, I refuse to believe it. And even if... Chapter 27. Spirits aren't always with us. Let's bring 'em out! The new century's premier spiritualist, Hell's Messenger, Mr. Don Konoji. Spirits are always with you! My family has gone nuts for a TV psychic that I can't stand. What are you doing? Don't you know about spontaneous trips? Spontaneous trips to spiritual hotspots? The premier spiritualist, Don Kanochi. He's super popular right now. I know who he is. I'm talking about that stupid pose and shout. I'm gonna let you babies hear the whispers of the spirits again this week. Bohahahaha! Bohahahaha! Bleach, chapter 27. Spirits aren't always with us. They're watching spontaneous trips to spiritual hotspots, or just spontaneous trips for short. What do you think, Mr. Kanochi? This Voss is unquestionably. It's a hokey spiritualist show that goes on Wednesday nights at 8. It's really popular, but it seems phony to me. Yes, it reeks of mean spirit. It just started this spring, but it's already getting a 25% ratings every week. It's a huge hit. The star is the new century's premier spiritualist, Kanonji Misao Maru, weird name, aka Don Kanonji, weirder name. This definitely. He's become more popular with teenage girls than any rock star. Smells like mean spirits! And that's his tagline. He's so cool! That's cool. Isn't he amazing, Ichigo? He always gets it right. I don't know. Ichigo! Okay. If he says he could see spirits, he probably can. Wow, how amazing! Wow, he's so amazing. I wish I could see ghosts like that. If I could, I'd... Hmm? What are you looking at? You want some juice? Mine's gone. Huh? Oh no. Nothing. What is it? Aren't you gonna watch that? Oh, I'm not into it. Go, Kanonji! Yuzu idolizes that guy. She and Goat Chin can't see ghosts, so that kind of stuff impresses him. Look, Goat Chin's starting to drool. Maybe I can't see spirits as well as you can, but that charlatan doesn't do much for me. As well as me. Yeah. Karen saw the first hollow that came after us too. Wait a second. If she can see hollows, can she see soul reapers too? Hey! What? Don't shout like that, Yuzu. Oh! Next week's spontaneous trips is coming to Korokorocho. Next week will be an emergency broadcast live special. We'll be visiting an abandoned hospital in Korokorocho, Tokyo. Huh? The horoscope nailed that one. Next week's supposed to be really bad. Okay, good night, babies. Bohahaha! Good night, babies. Nice. Bohahaha! Hey, that wasn't much of a reaction, Ichigo. Don't you know what that is? Spontaneous trips. Right! Come on, Ichigo, say it with me. Bohaha! Banzai! Tatsuki, what? Okay, I'll do the bahaha with you. Why? A 25% rating means 1 out of every 4 Japanese people watches it. Did you watch Spontaneous Trips last night? Of course. I hear they're filming around here next week. Middle-aged people usually don't watch shows like that, so it's just about all the younger people must be tuning in. Naturally, the day following the show is, hey, Ichigo! Heck no! Why not? Don't you get it? Japan's top show is coming to our town. If you don't go watch, you might as well be dead. You'll forever be known as the loser who didn't go see the show. That's the best you've got. Anyway, you live in Naruki. What's this our town stuff? You can't just claim Karakura because suddenly it's cool. Ichigo, you jerk. I went to the trouble of asking Rukia to go too. Hello, Ichigo. Hello, Miss Imposter. Here, Rukia. Bohahaha. Oh no, I'm much too demure to do that. She's really expanding her repertoire. What am I gonna do? Ichigo doesn't want to come. Don't worry, he'll come. Arasawa Inoue, get to class. Next Wednesday, 7:31. You came! Shut up! I'll mangle you all. He said he'd mangle us? Dear me, young people these days. Ichigo. Sorry about the other day. For what? Tatsuki told me you hate this show. I didn't know. Oh, that. Don't worry, it's no big deal. Keigo and Mizuru know that I hate too, but they still. But you came anyway. Why? Yuzu and Dad are big fans. Your sister and your father? Yeah. And that's why you came, even though you hate it? Huh? I couldn't let them come alone. You're very thoughtful, Ichigo. I am. It's nothing. I guess you're right. It's nothing. Nothing. Anyway, look at all those losers gathering here. Don't they have lives? That's what the TV guys will think. Darn it. Come on, Ichigo, cheer up! You too? Hey, why the face? What face? It's my everyday face. You're here now, so you might as well try to enjoy yourself. Oh, that's Rukia saying that. You're here now, so you might as well try to enjoy yourself. You must be tired from school and Soul Reaper work. Take this opportunity to unwind. Rukia, you're concerned about my well-being? You've got a surprisingly nice... Anyway, What's this festival about? You came here without the slightest clue? So it's a TV show. Now I get it. That's what it's all about. She still doesn't get it. Anyway, is there really a ghost in that old hospital? What? It's like a horror flick cliche. If there were ghosts here, wouldn't you Soul Reapers have already taken care of them already? Not necessarily. Usually places like this are haunted by fixed location Jibaku ghosts. Jibaku blend in with their environment, so society's sensors can't detect them. The only thing that will make a Jibaku show itself is, "Excuse me, coming through." "Set the lights back, back! Just set them way inside, sure." Wahahaha! If someone invades its territory. Cancer, you're in the clear this week. You will make a new friend, and the new world will open up to you. That's why I don't believe in that stuff. The concept is Peter Pan. The positive message is on the back. Don't give up on your dreams. That is it for chapter 26 or 27, I think, right? I believe we're on 27 of Bleach, the Bleach manga, in which we get introduced to Don Kanoji, as well as, a little bit of where we're headed towards in this new arc, where spirits aren't always with us. So let's get right into talking about what's going on in this chapter. So we open with kind of we get a close up of Ichigo here, kind of grounding this entire thing from Ichigo's point of view, and I believe that a lot of this following kind of arc is Ichigo point of view, so it makes sense that we kind of start there. But we have him with this magazine. He's really expressing like how much he really can't stand spiritualists, right? And it kind of irks him to get this horoscope about catastrophic bad luck, right? Because he doesn't believe in it, even though it does seem to be like it's coming to pass. And immediately we get introduced to this character Don Kanonji. Kanonji, something like that. Anyway, kind of has this goofy sort of BOHAHAHAHA sort of thing, right? That whole deal going on, very signature kind of expression and look. But is very much the kind of character that Ichigo is not slated to like, because Ichigo's he's not this overtly flashy sort of character, and the way in which he interacts with spirits tends to be much more serious and earnest, right? Whereas this is this huge production, and it seems like it's a lot of kind of like they call him a charlatan, right? That it's a show just kind of making money off of people, that it's not earnest, and so of course Ichigo really can't stand him. But yeah, usually brings up, oh yeah, you don't know about spontaneous trips, and we get this whole description. I think we get a lot of really great, imagery of Don Kanoji here. This kind of ridiculous outfit and look that he has, and then we also get this kind of set where, clearly, the half the family's really into this and having a lot of fun, and the other half is like, totally, it's bogus. This is another, them with this spray gang. These visuals for this cover get lifted and used in the first intro for Bleach as well. But also this chapter, of course, spirits aren't always with us, and Don Kanoji's whole phrase, spirits are always with you, comes to eventually be translated or used as spirits are forever with you. That sort of catchphrase, obviously I use that on the show as like a kind of tag for going out, but it also was used as the title for one of the light novel series that are based on Bleach, that were written by Naruto, different author, person who worked on Bakano, if you're familiar with that. But pretty sure, at least, pretty sure it's the Durarara and Bakano guy. Anyway, huge fan of Bleach work on these light novels. Has Kubo's, thumbs up on that and all that. Kind of builds the Bleach universe in different ways. I could talk more about how I feel about those novels some other time, but the spirits are forever with you tends to be the kind of phrase that we'll be going with. Though initially kind of gets translated here as spirits are always with you. Um, Regardless, there's this idea of, the way in which other people interact with spirits, right? Because we've been getting so much of like, here's the world lore and the way that like these characters who are keyed in, right? And Ichigo like learning more about the world, but now he's past that precipice and he has, a little bit more insights into the spiritual world, right? And so do we within the context of the manga. And so instead of us getting more of that, we pull back a little bit to see how the average person thinks about spirits in this world, right? And how the usual person kind of interacts with all this spiritual kind of stuff. And obviously it's of interest to people. Also, Smells Like Mean Spirit seems like a direct reference to Smells Like Teen Spirit, which is a Nirvana reference, which Bleach is the whole Nirvana album. Yeah, it's all Kubo. Kubo really likes music. I don't know if you've figured that one out, but you know, the whole, yeah, like the entire making references to Nirvana. This isn't going to be the last one. But of course, it is a musical reference there. Um, and we can assume that this is a little bit after the fight with Grand Fisher. Ichigo's still kind of bandaged up, but that might be just from his tripping and falling around earlier this week, right? I like that we get Yuzu's imagined kind of, if she could see ghosts, she'd be like some sort of magical girl, Peter Pan looking, deal. Uh, get some kind of cute art of Ichigo, and whenever I talk about the art really kind of becoming clear, we get much more what I feel like are a much more confident line work and expressive work for these characters. Like I said, I think Kubo's really, after 3 volumes now on our fourth one, really coming to understand how he likes to like, kind of depict these characters and really kind of falling into having a style for all of them. We're still getting those kind of the no face background elements and all of that, which is interesting. Like I said, I don't remember that being kind of a common thing in Bleach, but clearly it is. Um, Even we get like some of the complete missing of like the eye there, and I think it's less like it's more just drawing your eye with white space yet again, similar to what he does with backgrounds, just with detail on the actual characters, what's foregrounded versus what's backgrounded. Um, but yeah, here I think just fantastic art for both Yuzu and Ichigo in this moment. I also like that, like, here we also get Yuzu and Karen wearing kind of similar outfits. Like, they both have a same kind of sleeves and shirt deal going on. Whereas, the others are kind of dressed differently, obviously. Perhaps to punctuate that kind of difference, but I don't know. And again, we get a very like expressive Karen and a pretty good sense of her character too. So I think most of this is just kind of reminding us, of course, of Ichigo's family and these characters, and kind of grounding this upcoming story more in this sort of coming at it from a regular point of view rather than the heightened. We were just at this climax of sort of spiritual, like hollows fighting soul reaper stuff, right? So we're coming off of that, and we're kind of grounding the story in something a lot more kind of mundane as we go forward. And so this chapter starts to do a lot of that. And of course establishes that the show is coming here to Karakura. So, also on a note, Cho just denotes like a place, right? Like I think that's city. Um, I believe. I'm almost positive that's the case. That it's like a city or not like a province. Because city is Chu, I think. I think it's just a place name kind of thing. Yeah, I think it's like a town or whatever. Yeah, there's there's a lot of like that. You get a lot of that sort of distinctive kind of sort of thing. You could look more into Japanese place names and suffixes and prefixes, but that's just a suffix that's appended to Karakura, which is the city that they're in. Which again, this this chapter is revealing a little bit more of what I've based this channel name on, right? On Karakura Gold, right? Which is also built into a little bit of Don Kanoji's deal, but I wanted to lift a little bit of that Bleach sort of stuff for this channel, and here it is. But yes, they're coming to the town of Karakura within Tokyo, so we get specific sort of instance that that they are living in Tokyo, but Karakura is a part of Tokyo. So we have a very distinct, very even though I don't think Karakura is an actual place, right? In reality, I think the idea is that it is one of many parts of the sprawling mega city of Tokyo, right? This is maybe easier for you to conceptualize if you're living in like somewhere like New York or Chicago, right? And now you different parts of the place that you live. But yeah, I also think Tokyo, there's maybe I don't know. There's how much distinction there is too between Tokyo as a province or Tokyo as a city as well, right? Or if that's even the case. Uh, that's another good one because I mean it is the entire. It's a pretty large area, right? It is Japan's capital and all, but also services this huge city. So I don't know. I don't know that you know, yeah, it's in the Kanto region. Yeah, just a huge metro problem. I'm trying to think of like how I'd actually like to delineate that as far as Western, you know, like especially American, right? The way that we think about like country, states, city. I guess it's country, state. Um, I live in Louisiana, notably, so we have parishes here rather than counties. But usually we kind of delineate between country, state, county, and then city, and even cities are pretty large, and so you have different kind of area codes within a city. You'll have various sections of a city, right, neighborhoods and things like that. So I believe Tokyo is just a large city as far as I understand, but I don't know. If anybody has more insight in that, whatever. Point is, Karakura, part of Tokyo, very connected to the real world, and I think that's, we tangented along enough on that. The point is that this is grounding us in a very real world place, right? But also, this is kind of interesting because we've been focusing so much on Ichigo getting down the rabbit hole and like this very personal sort of encounter. And so then we have this sort of spiritual world, this kind of commercial spiritual world, and it's interesting to see how many other people. He says 25% of the population's tuning in, especially young people. And so he goes back to school, and all of his friends are kind of into this thing, right? That this is more ubiquitous than expected. It's 15 here on Ichigo's, I guess school bag, kind of cute. Anyway, but yeah, we get a lot of shots of these other characters, just like the previous chapter, where we get reminded of all these huge slew of human characters that are going to be, more significant moving forward within this arc. I think that's the important thing, is that we get to kind of reminded of all of these characters. We get to see a lot of them on display and interacting with Ichigo, of course. And again, I think it's to kind of set up that groundwork so that it doesn't feel like any of these people are coming out of nowhere. I love the gag of just Chad just throwing up the arms and the hands, doing the whole pose, but not really, saying anything. It's a fantastic visual gag for how much Ichigo is kind of fed up with this. But even Chad's into it, which speaks towards the kind of all-encompassing nature of this program, right? And of course, we get more of Rukia kind of pretending and putting on a show. This is interesting. I was thinking about this before, right? Because Rukia, whenever she's amongst, especially her school, the other people at school, she puts on this very dainty, sort of approachable self. But I also wonder how much she's putting on, in general, around Ichigo, or around, even if she were around her peers in Soul Society, how much of her identity is performed. Because, to an extent, all of our identities are performed, right? We are entirely performance. It is, we learn how to act and behave from, socialization, from our peers, from different pressures growing up, and we learn how to kind of perform our identity in different ways. So it's kind of interesting, though, to consider how much of this performance is conscious on Rukia's behalf, because certainly this is, right? But, we do get the sense, right, that she doesn't tell Ichigo everything about Soul Society and about Hollows, because that's certainly the case, even though she's coming to trust him more and more and believe in him more and more. So it's interesting to think about Rukia as this character that really has this very clear idea of being this kind of outsider that performs this role to fit in. And I wonder how much she's doing that, with Ichigo even, right? So it's interesting to consider that facet of her character. And we talked about this in previous episode analysis, but the idea of all of the characters of Bleach kind of, in a way, having this sort of discrepancy between how they really feel and what they really believe in versus how they express themselves, right? And so we get a lot of that, and whether or not that is to an end of trying to keep things going the way that they are and keep everything okay versus deceiving others, right? So it's interesting to think about the way in which we portray our identities. And that being a pretty, a fairly major thing in Bleach, because a lot of this is about these connections between these people, right? We do get a shot of the moon here, but it isn't the usual crescent moon. Still, it gives us the idea of maybe something spiritual that's going to go down, which of course does come to pass, right? I love all these outfits. I think they're all fantastic. I like Chad being so tall that he gets cut off here. I'm pretty sure he got cut off in the other panel. No, yeah, he's almost too big for the panel there too. I love he's got the whole head on Ichigo. It's pretty good. Just I think solid, keeping in mind of how tall these characters are, right? And then we get the same thing with the girls. And I love that we can really read these kind of a lot about these characters based on how they're presenting themselves, and of course Ichigo's just not having any of it. I like his nice vibe shirt. It's a very, very cool, cute shirt. But of course we have Ichigo set with his family. So I love these different groups of characters, like his Ichigo's male friends, female friends, and then his family. And we get a lot about where they're all coming from as well. Yeah. We have this the other. I think maybe the real meat and bones of this chapter finally kind of comes at the end here, where we have this kind of short conversation with Orihime, right? Where she's saying, like, Ichigo's like, yeah, like it's like he like it's similar to kind of the way that Ishin was in the previous volume, right? Where Ichigo was like, why aren't you mad with me? And Ishin's like, I wouldn't even think to be. It doesn't even register with him that would be a response. Whereas like Ichigo's like, she's like, why did you come even though you hated? And he's like, huh? Yeah, well, I wouldn't let him come alone. Like, of course not. Like, it's just not in his nature to even consider that. And so, Orihime says, like, you're really thoughtful, like she kind of finds that it's like a moment of tenderness from Ichigo, right? That like that's just she thinks that's like a moment of him being very considerate of others. That he's not being selfish in what he's doing, and of course, whenever Ichigo responds with this whole like, what? Yeah, what? Like it's nothing. That kind of takes her by surprise because she really, I think, realizes that you know Ichigo really isn't consciously making this decision to be here. That's just kind of who he is. Um, and yeah, whenever she's like, yeah, it's nothing. There's like this I don't it's hard to kind of think of like what exactly she means here, right? Whenever she's like, I guess you're right, it's nothing, and this is like meant to be a pretty significant moment of Ichigo realizing, maybe like seeing something in Orihime. Um, and if I had to connect it to anything, I think it's just the idea of like internalizing these values, and right, and like so much so that like it's not anything special to kind of behave in these ways, right? And I think Orihime is really, that's something that she really respects about Ichigo and admires about him, is like kind of who he is, just without any sort of forcefulness, right? Because certainly there's aspects of Ichigo's personality that like he kind of pushes intentionally, like his kind of punkish persona is, yeah, certainly he's like this kind of rebellious teenage guy, but he gives off this whole sense of being kind of cool, a cool dude. uh but like that's more again performed than it is really something that is just an earnest, like part of him, that like it's nothing for him to kind of be this considerate person. And I think that's really ultimately what Orihime really likes about him. And yeah, we get Ichigo speaking towards like all these different losers who have shown up. um it's he's kind of like, I think these guys even have lives. And then we get, of course, Rukia kind of joining in on this, and that's played as a bit of a gag too. And he has to explain to Rukia like what's even going on here, which is also pretty funny. And then we get the other kind of big, kind of important moment in this chapter, right, in which Ichigo's wondering if there's ghosts here, but he's like, no, Soul Reapers probably would have taken care of it if it's like this big hospital that's been abandoned. And she explains that no, there's actually ghosts that blend in with their environments so much so that the sensors can't detect them. And so usually, what does end up happening is that they don't show themselves until, of course, their territory gets invaded, which is what is exactly happening here. And so, the idea of like, you're in the clear for this week will make a new friend and a new world will open up to you. The idea of this horoscope being maybe, not entirely honest, as we get, uh, a pretty significant kind of uh, threat maybe arising, right? There's definitely ghosts here, and maybe then the presence of hollows, right? So, kind of interesting place to bring us. We also get this like a Peter Pan ish and don't give up on your dreams deal, which is absolutely goofy. But yeah, all in all, again, I think solid chapter. Really, serves mostly just to launch us into a lot of what we're going to be focusing on. Introduces Don Kanoji clearly. Speaks towards a little bit of the way in which regular people engage with the spiritual world, which is kind of neat. But yeah, it's interesting to think about. Interesting to kind of make these various connections. Um, see how these characters kind of connect and interact whenever given a moment to breathe. Because we've gone from this kind of very serious, dire situation in the last volume to a lot more lower stakes, kind of mundane thing, but now we're being brought back into the world of the spiritual as Ichigo and Rukia know it, right? So it's kind of interesting that whenever those sorts of places, those two worlds kind of collide, even, and this is exploring that in a lot of ways. But yeah, that's it. That's all I have really for chapter 27. I believe it's 27. Yep. Um, you know, I think we'll certainly get a lot more on Don Kanoji. I'll have more about that character, more to say there in general as we go on with the entirety of this volume. But overall, I think this introduction is kind of funny. It's a bit goofy, it's a bit easy, and it kind of lulls us into maybe a false sense of security as we're brought into yet again the world of Shinigami hollows, pluses, or holes, whatever they call them, right? Um, yeah, so it's curious. I say it's curious. Maybe I should use that, but it leaves us asking like, oh man, what's going to happen next? That's what I mean, right? There's a bit of anticipation, and I think it really effectively sort of lets us understand everybody that's around and kind of their takes on things and where they stand in relation to each other, and then builds us towards this sort of arc that's happening. In a lot of ways, I think Bleach ends up being pretty effective for me because it always tends to have this momentum towards these really cool moments, and I think that's what I like a lot. Is it never feels like it's really floundering. Um, yeah. Anyway, that's about all I had to say about the chapter. As always, if I point out anything that you didn't notice, please feel free to give the video a like. If you noticed something that I didn't, please leave it in the comments. Let me know. But otherwise, let's get right into spoilers, how this connects to the rest of the manga. So, um, obviously, there's we get a little bit of the fake spiritualist stuff. I think it's kind of interesting that we do have Ishin engaging with this because the whole idea, right, is at least what Karen says is that like, well, they're right, they're kind of so dumb they can't see spirits. They really get an excitement out of this, right? That's the joke or the idea. But knowing that Ishin at least is aware that maybe this is all a hoax, but Ishin's really buying into it because he's doing this with his daughter. So like this is like a much sweeter kind of scene. Like it's easy to be like, oh, Ishin's just being stupid, but like it absolutely reads as like a paternal sort of him like being like, because otherwise Yuzu's really into this thing, but her two siblings aren't, right? And that's kind of, she wouldn't get to enjoy this as much, but she has this connection with her dad, and her dad really is, all in on it too. And I think that's fantastic. Like, I think that's something that, you read in retrospect, and like, yeah, it's a little bit there, even whenever you consider, even without that in mind, right? The idea that like, oh, that's pretty cute that they're both into this thing. But knowing, I think, even more that Ishin probably knows it's all bullshit, right? And that it certainly had been aware of spirits and has had this huge connection, and chooses to engage with it anyway. Again, further reflects that kind of cinnamon, like the sort of ethos that drives Ishin, where he's not going to be this sort of tortured or dour kind of individual. That instead he's going to try to like fill the lives of his family with laughter and joy, right? Um, so I think that's pretty sweet. Here, of course, we have also this is kind of a neat moment because we have Ichigo thinking about if she could see Soul Reapers, right? She could see Hollows, all of that, and clearly Karen's going to be attacked later, right? By Bulbous G, I believe, and Chad's going to help her. I don't think that happens until Volume 5 because I believe Chad is on the cover of that one. That ends up being the one where we really develop both Chad and Orihime. But I think this is kind of brought up here just to let us know, like, well, one, Ichigo's going to have to kind of avoid Karen seeing him as a Soul Reaper, but two, like clearly she's kind of developing spiritually as well, and that's going to be significant moving forward, right? So that's kind of interesting. I love, speaking of art, just seeing this immediately mirrored down page is really great. Takano just got such a ridiculous design. Anyway, I like Tatsuki, like trying to kind of protect Ichigo, which is interesting. Trying to kind of like not rub this in his face. Chad joining in is great. I'm trying to think of some other things to kind of speak of here that really connect. The idea of like this show coming to their town, it does get brought up that their town's pretty significant as far as like spiritual stuff goes. So it's interesting that like yeah, like of course this show's gonna come to your town. Rukia with the heart behind a cage is maybe a little bit on point to talk about like what's going on with her. um, right? The idea of like that she's gonna end up, behind bars, and here she's wearing literally like a bard thing. And it's a cute outfit, but I don't know how much that's meant to be, visually foreshadowing what's going to end up going on with her. As much as I could also say, like, oh, look at Ichigo, he's got this white shirt over a black shirt. He's Quincy and Shinigami, like whatever, right? I don't think the costuming's that explicit here. Things I do like, blah 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 da da. We do get a bit of this connection that I talked about between Orihime and Ichigo. Ichigo kind of going out of his way, even though he doesn't, it's not something that he cares about because he does care about these people, right? Obviously, this sort of connection that he has to Orihime is going to have him go out of his way for her later, too, as she gets captured. One thing I did want to notice here is that I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be, Ishida right here in the background. And I think, intentionally, that's like the only other face that we get in line here with Ichigo's. So it's kind of neat that you see him back there. So, kind of cool to think about, like Ishida was there ready to handle things, or maybe he was interested in what's going on with the spiritualist here too. Yeah. But very clearly would be aware of what Ichigo was doing here on this night as well, which is kind of interesting to think about. Let's talk about blending in with their environment and Soul Society's sensors not being able to detect these spirits that are blended into their environments, and that's kind of interesting. It's actually interesting to think about in terms of especially the novels for Spirits Are Forever With You. So if you don't know, the character that's the antagonist of Safui of Spirits Are Forever With You is Azushiro, and his whole deal is that he can blend in with the entirety of Soul Society, and so they can't find him anywhere because he's literally blending with his environment. So it's kind of interesting that, like, whenever I think about Spirits of Forever With You, it really feels like Naruto really reread a lot of this early Bleach stuff and try to work a lot of that into kind of a lot of his ideas for what he would do if he were to obviously include Dankanoji in this sort of thing. I don't, again, I'm not a huge fan of the light novels, but Like they feel very fan fiction-y to me because they are. You know, it's literally somebody else writing their Bleach fan fiction. Like even though they had the Kubo stamp of approval, um, you know, they still feel secondary to the actual manga itself. It's similar to the way in which the anime has a lot of anime only elements, which while technically given approval aren't canonical to the manga at the very least. So I don't know, like it's take it as you will. If it's something you enjoy engaging with, yeah, you enjoy engaging with, it's fine. If you don't care for it, then you don't care for it. It's whatever. I think it just allows you another avenue to kind of think about and enjoy this, which is the whole point, right? Um, Interesting here. We get the way that this gets stylized for the cancer. Um, Really reminds me, first of all, of course, of the guard on Rukia and therefore Ichigo's Zanpakuto. I believe that it has the same sort of symbol going on across the guard, but it also makes me think a little bit of, for whatever reason, the Espada, and I wonder if the Espada, to a degree, because I know they're associated with different aspects of death, right? But I wonder if they were also if there's some connection there between the different zodiac as well, or any of that. I mean, obviously, we have maybe more connections zodiac wise elsewhere, um, otherwise. So I don't know, like but there is that kind of more animal kind of form thing going on, right? So I'm unsure how much of connection there really is otherwise, but it's interesting to think about. Of course, the cancer symbol appearing on both Rukia and Ichigo's, initial. It's technically just Rukia's Zanpakuto. Um, and in general, that water sign and kind of the implications thereof. Anyway, ooh, that's basically all I had to say for this chapter. There's not a lot that I can think of otherwise connections kind of going on. Um, like the idea of spirits being territorial is kind of interesting, especially whenever you start to think about the way in which the different hollows feel about parts of Soul Society, or not Soul Society, but Hueco Mundo, right? As like kings or rulers or whatever, or being banished from areas. Um, yeah, I don't know. There's a bit there that's kind of being set up lore wise, but yeah, that's all I've really got for this one. Let me know if you saw any other connections. But that's it for Bleach Chapter 27. Spirits aren't always with you. But as far as this show is concerned, of course, never forget the spirits are forever with you. Um, that's it for this one. Thanks so much for watching. As always, spirits are forever with you. Stay gold.